From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to you. Good Christmas Eve to you. Happy Christmas Eve to you. It is a Christmas Eve version of Weather Weeklies on this Sunday, December 24th. I'm going to kind of blow through this pretty quickly because I have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. But the good thing about this is it is a video that is archived. If there's anything you missed, what did he say? You can go back and review at any point just by going back in the video. And that's kind of why I do this in these formats, so you can go back and reference things at different points in time. So we have a very mild Christmas coming up, Christmas period in a couple days after, and, we really weren't expecting too much in the month of December all along, but here we are, and it's going to be a mild Christmas and a couple days after period, and then we see a change coming toward the end of this month that is going to last us into the first week, at least, of January, and we highlighted that in the long-range outlook that we did on Friday, where we're in this above average period through about the 27th, and then we're kind of like in a, I got this color coded wrong with the blue here, but it's actually, this is actually a slightly above average, should be in red, but on the 28th, and then we start coming down here, right through New Year's, and then to start at least the first half of January, we do have a relaxation period, a short one in week 3 of January, but still near average, which is still good enough. We don't really need below average temperatures in January to produce snow, but this is still a pattern change. Pattern change is a little bit is defined a little bit differently than most people like to define this. As a pattern change refers to significant changes in the North American content with regard to the 500 millibar height anomalies and the resultant change in temperature patterns. That's all we're looking for. Although snow probabilities increase during this period, snowfall is not a metric to define any pattern change. That is important. Everybody thinks, well, pattern change, we're going to get like boatloads of snow. Not necessarily, okay? We are going to get some snow, and I do think we are going to get into snow chances. They may not be big storms. So, listen, we're on we're most areas are at a trace right now of snow, and we need to get on the board here, okay? We need to get this going in as far as snowfall is concerned, because obviously we're way behind. This is what average December snowfall is. It's not a tremendous amount yet. It does go up in January in terms of what averages are at our major climate stations across the region. But this is where we are year to date, and aside from Scranton, which is also almost 6 inches below average, everywhere else is just a trace of snow from a couple snow shower events, little light dustings here and there. These are at the airport, so there's some areas around here that did get measurable accumulations, but it wasn't, much more than this. So the whole point is we need to turn this up a little bit and need to see some change in order to get to having snowfall. If you're not a fan of snowfall, that's fine too. I'm not trying to appeal to the snow lovers here, but I mean, the snow lovers have been kind of starved here over the last, a couple of years here. We really haven't had too much in the way of snow, and the snow haters are fine with that. But eventually this is going to come crashing down, and I do think that's going to happen this winter. And I've been saying that we had to be patient, and we're kind of getting to that point where things need to start changing, because we're getting into January now. We knew December was going to be a wash, but so this starts with the background state and changes to the background state. The El Nino that we talked about being east-based is no longer east-based. Okay, here's Niño 4, which is the far western region, and here's Niño 1 and 2, far eastern regions. They're about the same, around 1.5 degrees Celsius above average. Okay, and these two in the middle, Niño 3.4 and Niño 3, are almost the same as well. So this is becoming more of a central-based El Nino and less of an east-based influence. So that's going to be, we were projecting this is going to happen during the month of December at some point. We're there, okay? So it's already happening, okay? That has already occurred. We are moving away from the east base, which, near the Peruvian coast, and weighted with Niño 3 and 1 and 2 being the warmest. Like, if you look back at some of the warm winters we've had, like 1997, for example, those waters in the far eastern areas over here in Niño 3 and 102, which are over in these areas, were the warmest out of the entire region. Well, that's not the case this year, so this is becoming more central-based, and these eastern regions can, over the past week, as you can see, are also starting to cool a little bit further than what they were just 6 days ago. That graphic I showed you with the actual observed sea surface temperatures was from last Monday. They updated every single Monday morning. And the warmer areas are in these areas. These are continuing to warm out here. So it's transitioning away from this east base. It's been doing that for the past several weeks, and we're finally at that point now where this change that we projected to be happening in in December this month at some point has occurred. Okay, so we're away from the east base. We're still a strong Nino, however. Okay, so don't get that twisted there. But we are looking at the updated model projections from, and so we are here. We are right here. Okay, and from here, you see everything's going this way, down, away from strong Nino. We're still going to be strong Nino probably through the majority of this winter, if not all of it. You have to get down to, maybe when we get to March or April, it's back to a moderate again. So there's a chance at the end of the winter to get back to a moderate El Nino, but that really doesn't matter for the grand scheme of things. We just needed to get away from the east-based versus, we can't have east-based. East-based is not good if you're a snow lover because that just kills your chances for snow, and you have a very mild winter. Starting off that way, of course, in December, but I don't think it stays that way. And our projections here in the chart for next month is near to slightly below average as opposed to well above average this month, which is +3 to +5. And some areas might even be higher than that. This is just a composite average of the entire region. Some people will message me every once in a while and say, well, Wilkes-Barre is +6.2 and you had 3.5. Well, okay, that's just one location. There's some areas within our region that are lower than that. This is a composite average for the region as a whole. That includes Atlantic City, it includes Newark, it includes Harrisburg, it includes Williamsport, all these areas in between that make up the composite average. And for the month of January, we're near to slightly below average with near to slightly above average snowfall. So again, this is what near average snowfall is in January. I think we can certainly get that, if not more, in the month of January, and it's certainly shaping up that would be the case. Now, it might not be a blockbuster event, and I think you're going to have that with time, and I'll show you why, but there's a couple things going on here that are going to change things, okay? The first thing is, here's look at what we looked at for the month of December when we're dealing with a moderate or strong east-based El Nino, and this is how December played out. We're moving away from the east-based stuff now, and we're going to more, central-based here, but it's still a strong Nino, so it's still going to behave the same way when you go from this look in December, which is, wow, pretty close to that, right? That's Christmas morning. Pretty close, okay? And we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, too, how it matches up very nicely. That's exactly what you expect with the Gulf of Alaska trough here, or the Aleutians trough, Bering Seas trough, whatever you want to call it, and then cooler in the southwestern U.S., warmer over our area and much of southern Canada, and you can see that right here. That's exactly what it is. That's Christmas morning, okay? When you get to January, it looks more like this, typically, okay? Now, I don't think it's going to look exactly like this now because we're moving away from the east-based, and it's going to change a little bit. There's going to be some things that are going to change this pattern completely, and we'll get to that. And I think, once you get to, obviously once you get to February, that is the most epic pattern of all, okay? And I think we'll get there too, okay? So down the road certainly is going to be better than present, certainly. Okay, now what changes this? Why am I confident this is changing? Well, again, you can look at models all you want, and you're seeing a lot of that on Twitter and other sources, Facebook. People that are weather enthusiasts that are posting these images all of a sudden out of nowhere, like, oh my God, big epic pattern coming. They're going nuts about how this pattern's changing. Well, I told you for weeks that this is coming, all right, just to relax and be patient. But now that the models show it and they can physically see it, now it's like, oh yeah, see, I knew it was coming. Well, okay. We look at observational stuff, okay? Things that are going on the other side of the globe affect what is happening here downstream. Things at different levels of the atmosphere affect things downstream for here. We're going to cover a couple of those things. The first thing, we talked about the Pacific Jet last week, okay? Pacific Jet extension is very much there, okay? It's going all the way across the Pacific. It's very strong right now. It's leading to this mild air flooding the country. Now, that was in part due to this East Asian mountain torque, okay? And that's really what got this thing going in the first place. I'm going to stop this at the beginning if I can. It's not going to let me stop. Okay. Usually this lets me stop here. I'm not sure why it's not doing it. There we go. Oh, come on. All right. Well, I had it there for a second. I'm not sure why. There we go. Now I stopped at the wrong spot. So anyway, the beginning of this loop here, which is right here. Okay. See, you have high pressure. This is the Himalayas right here. The Himalayas are right in here. These are the Himalaya mountains. Okay, east of on the leeward side of the Himalayas, if you have high pressure in Eastern Asia, which you do at this point, this is looking at the 28th of December. This is what gets the positive East Asia mount. This is a positive East Asia mount torque as it looks right here. If you move this forward, however, look what happens as you go into early January. You get low pressure in Eastern Asia, and you get rid of this big high here. So that's a big difference. That's going to actually choke off the jet stream that looks like this. There's a Pacific jet extension that's strong because of that, and then it starts to, so you start getting wave breaks in here, right? Wave breaks, and then it chokes off as you get it. This is going into early January now. See the wave breaks here? It's more rippled, okay? And then it chokes off on the eastern side. So this is what is going to get the jet extension to stop basically asserting so much influence on the North American continent. That's what it's doing right now. So it starts with the East Asia Mountain Torque, changes to the atmospheric angular momentum as a result of that will choke off this jet stream. We talked about that last week. If you want to get more detailed about what East Asia Mountain Torque is, I discussed that in last week's video. Again, these are archived. I just don't want to spend too much time on that today. Here's what the resultant pattern is. We started this off. I'm going to start this off right here when we're starting on Christmas morning with this terrible pattern. And look what this evolves to as that you have changes to the jet. Okay? Watch as we go through time to early January. Well, okay. Now, I got a different setup here. Still have a positive NAO up here over Greenland. But now you have ridging coming into Alaska where that trough was before. Okay, so this is going to change some things around with you're going to start getting a cross-polar flow. Okay, you're going to get a negative EPO. You're going to get a positive PNA. And you get cold undercutting underneath of it. Now, it's not tremendous cold because we don't have a lot of snow cover up in these source regions, but it's cold enough. It's January. It's not, we don't have to pull teeth here to get cold and snow because it's already getting close to climatological minimums for the year, which will be achieved right around the 10th or so, I think, when you hit your minimums on most locations, and then it remains that way for the next 3 weeks. But this pattern changes as a result of everything going upstream. So this is number one. This is what number one is of the things that can change. And look, this just stays here. This is the EPS. It goes all the way out to the first week of January, and it just sticks around, right? These are the things that you need to see change. And this is the first thing, okay? This is the first key thing. And then this is what the temperatures look like here on the anomalies when I do the loop here, going into early January. Again, it's not tremendous cold, but it's still colder than average, and it's coming at a time of year where colder than average is, average temperatures are already close to minimums for the year anyway, okay? So this is certainly cold enough to produce snow. So when I listed a long-range signal on the Friday long range, the ensembles were not in range yet. Okay, now they are. They're starting to come into range, and they're starting to pick up on this signal period, which is right in here. This is a multi-run look at the GEFS. This is the GFS ensemble, and I can throw up the EPS here. I can throw this Canadian ensemble. They all have this period highlighted, which is in that same 5th to 7th time frame, where they have at least some accumulating snow. Now, again, it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount, but we have 0. So anything is better than 0. Even if you're only getting a couple inches out of it, you're getting something, and you're off the schneid, right? So that's what we're looking for, and maybe a couple systems that add up to something, at least early on. I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster pattern in a way, but it's better than the alternative, which is, boatloads of rain, your basement flooding, and everything else. We don't need that nonsense. We had enough of that this month. Okay, so if we get into snow, at least it's not melting right away, right? And you have that little bit slow seeping, not a big storm necessarily. So we look for number 2. That we talked about number 1, what the number 1 pattern was. Number 2, or what that's changing, making this pattern change more permanent rather than just semi-permanent. We look at the Madden-Julian oscillation, okay? Well, the Madden-Julian oscillation, whether I put this is the GFS I'm using here, GFS and GFS extended on the right. I could put the EPS up here, the European version. It's almost identical, okay? So right now we're in phase 1, and it's going to go through phase 2 and then collapse eventually into the circle of death once we get around the end of the first week of January, okay? EPS is doing the same thing, so it's not like this is far-fetched. But these in winter, 7, 8, 1, 2 are your colder phases. Over here are the warmer phases, okay? So we're staying in the colder phases and then collapsing the circle death where the pattern really isn't influenced by the Madden-Julian oscillation anymore. So once you get past maybe toward the end of the first week of January and onward, the extended version takes you through the circle of death, okay? That's fine, as long as we're not over here, okay? Circle of death just means the pattern, it's not running the pattern, that's all. Convection is not running the pattern. Maybe eventually it will. What this is number 2. So the fact that you have these into favorable phases at this time with a 7-day lag time or thereabout supports the colder that we're going to get through the first week of January, and probably a couple days past that at least. We're at least near to slightly below average. So this supports the pattern change too. Now, how do we keep this from just being a temporary thing, and do we have a January thaw period? Well, again, in the long-range chart I have here, I do have a thaw period, sort of. Where's it at? Right in here, between the 15th and 21st. That's the third full week of the month of January. You might have a thaw period, nothing really above average that I'm seeing right now. And you would, if it does go into the maritime continent with this Madden-Julian oscillation, which I just showed you it does not on the latest EPS and the GFS case through the circle of death, that would keep it near average, okay? That's okay. That's your thaw period, if you will. But at that time, that's the coldest climatological period of the year. So you can still get snow because it's just January and it's cold, right? You don't need necessarily to have some, below average temperatures in order to get that. However, what about beyond? Okay, what about beyond that? What gets it colder and what keeps it colder through February that everybody keeps talking about? Well, one of those things, and it's a huge thing, this is number 3, sudden stratospheric warming. Okay, we haven't talked about this year as yet, but this is a big thing that's being shown on both the European ensemble and now the GFS ensemble. Okay, GFS was a little slow to pick up on this, because it usually is. It's a little bit different resolution. But you have this is where you are on, this is where we are at the end of the month, right at the time the pattern change occurs, right? And just takes a nosedive, and you have a total zonal wind reversal up at 10 millibars, okay? That's up in the stratosphere. Complete zonal wind reversal at that point, which goes all the way through, which will occur at the end of the first week of January. Now, this is not for to come down and down well from that level down to our latitude, so it can affect our sensible weather. Not usually for about 2 weeks after. 10 to 14 days is the lag time for this to be felt locally. That puts us at the end of the third week of January. Okay, so there might be some changes, and what the models are showing right now is not exactly how it's going to be. They're going to adjust to this. Once they see this, they're going to be like, uh-oh, right? And you're going to start seeing some changes. This is what a strong polar vortex looks like. Well, it's not really strong. It's kind of stretched a little bit, but you have cold air over the polar regions, and it's locked into place here. This is what we are at right now. This is what we're going to be at through the end of the month. And just to give you a quick visual of that, a very broad look at what the effects are. If you have a colder stratosphere like shown now and through the end of this month, you get milder risks over the country here, unless you have something else at play, which we do. But you don't have any polar vortex influence at all. It's all trapped up here by the Arctic Circle and North Pole. Stays up there if it's a little bit stronger. In a less cold stratosphere, okay, so we have a warming episode like we're expected to have, cold is then able to displace to the mid-latitudes, and then you get a colder and stormy pattern, across parts of the United States, as long as the polar vortex aligns correctly. And it's shown to right now. I'm going to do this a loop here again. We're going to do this as a... See, this is where we're starting off at. See, this is the end of the month, and you still have a cold vortex over the poles. Now watch. You're going to get some warming over the poles, and watch what ends up happening. So let this run, just so you can see what happens. And watch all the warming that happens over the poles. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. There it is. You got warming over the poles, and wow. This is getting out to the end of the first week or beginning of the second week of January now. And you got strong warming over the poles. You have a split vortex. A split vortex means you have one on this side of the northern hemisphere and one right here. Okay, so this is going to set you up very nicely for the end of January and for the month of February. These usually last 30 to 45 days once they take effect. Okay, so that's a pretty good signal here for a stormy February. You also get some blocking out of this. Okay, that's another wild card we're not even really talking about yet, is blocking. I think that comes into effect, once we get into maybe the second week of January. Might have a little bit of that, but I think once you get to the end of the month, into February, you're going to have a lot of blocking to contend with, so we get some bigger storms possibly. I think you're going to have big storms is going to be then. But you're definitely going to get snow chances this month of January, okay? It might not be big blockbuster events. It might be a couple, 1 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 6 stuff that just adds up, okay? But maybe more at the end of the month. We'll see. But we just have to be patient. It's coming. We know the pattern change is coming. So this is the third thing. Sudden stratospheric warming is the third key to this whole thing. But we are definitely changing the pattern away from what we saw in December with much above average temperatures. We're getting rid of that. That's the first step in order to get snowfall into the region. Okay, so milder risks are present through Christmas and a few days after, through about the 28th, and then the pattern changes. Snow events become more likely toward the end of the first week of January and then beyond. Okay, it might not be big right away, but they're going to have, you know, some chances at least. And the winter storm signal period of January 5th to 7th will be monitored the next 10 plus days. And that's pretty much it. That's all we're going to do right now. I know I covered a lot. There's a lot of data dump information today, but I wanted to make it, Chris, quicker today and not quite as long as the some of the other recent Weather Weeklies videos have gone, because it is Christmas Eve and I know you have better things to do. So everybody have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate. If not, happy Festivus or whatever they call it on Seinfeld. And we will see you again. I will have one next on New Year's Eve as well, just like we did this morning. So we're not skipping the Weather Weeklies video. There will not be a daily forecast video though on Monday morning like usual. The next one will be on Tuesday morning. Okay, so don't be looking for that on Monday morning saying, "Where's the daily forecast video?" Well, it's Christmas, so I'm not. Sorry, we're not doing that. But I will see you again next week. Next week is New Year's Eve, and hopefully we have a better snapshot of, we're closer to the pattern change at that time. So, you know, or should be in it at least, and we'll be able to see some more signals, hopefully, than just that one. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchich. This is this edition for Weather Weeklies for Sunday, December 24th. Take care.